examPAL.
Let's start talking about it. How do you build a study plan? So I think that the first question that you should be asking yourself when you start thinking about this question is, how long am I going to study? And actually, this question can itself be broken up into two sub-questions, two smaller questions. Okay, so the first one is, how much should I study in total? How many hours? Is it 50 hours, 100 hours, 200 hours? I'm actually curious what your guys' guesses on what the answer to that I'm going to give in a few minutes is going to be. If you want to tell me in the chat. But we'll get there in a minute anyway. And the second question is, over how long a period should I spread my study plan over? Should it be over a month, 2 months, a year, my entire adulthood? What? So we're going to talk right now about the first question, and then we're going to present several different answers for the second question throughout this entire webinar, because in many ways it's somewhat more of a complicated question. So let's start with some concrete data. So we recently had a webinar in which we spoke with one of the GMACs. It's the people who write the test. One of the GMAC senior directors, Vineet Chabra, and he shared the following data with us. So take a look. It's on your screen. There's kind of a lot of data there. So we'll take a minute to absorb it. And I'm not gonna go over everything here really, but I'm gonna sort of point your attention towards a few things. So first, let's start actually kind of from the end. On the bottom right corner, look at that, it's written there, those that score at least 600 study on average 122 hours. Okay, and now let's look on the left side, and very left side, the median number of hours of preparation by GMAT score. And you can really see here how, as the number of hours goes up, the score grows in accordance, okay? Which makes sense. And I will say that many of the people who get 700 are people who do the test second or third time, retakers, and they actually might need less time of preparation for their final testing. But in general, the trend is clear. The more you study, the more people to score. So this is the GMAX data, of course, not ours. I'm going to address the questions for a second. Two people asked already, you can get a recording. The answer is yes. All of you are here now signed up. You'll get a recording later. And if you have any more questions throughout the chat, keep them coming. So based on this data and also based on our own experience, we recommend studying for between 100 and 120 hours in total. Okay? And we recommend adding to that another extra 30 hours for non-native English speakers. Okay? The middle graph from what we were just looking at actually gives a clue to why this is. We'll discuss this soon. So now, this being said, of course, studying for over 100 hours doesn't guarantee that you're going to score 600 or more, nor will studying 122, which is the average score for people who score that much, right? I mean, if you just spend 100 hours sitting in front of a piece of paper or sitting in front of your computer and you're only staring at the question without knowing what to do, or worse, you're just daydreaming, obviously that's not going to get you anywhere. So as with many things in life, it's not just the quantity, it's the quality, right? So, sorry. The real question is, what is going to determine if this 100 to 120 hours plus 30 hours perhaps will be enough? And the answer to that is how you spend them. And we're going to discuss that later, so don't worry, I'm not going to leave you in suspense. So the median number of hours of preparation I mentioned a minute ago gives us a clue as to the fact that people whose native language is not English do need to spend more. So here you can see kind of breakdown by geography of how much time people spend, and it makes sense. The makes sense, right? The verbal section, as well as the analytical writing assessment, they rely heavily on our English skills. So the second, slightly more complicated answer that we have to address is over how long a period of time should you be studying? In other words, how long before you take the exam on the calendar should you start studying? Well, so the real question is, it depends. And the main factor that shapes the answer to this question is how much time do you have? Can you devote all your time to studying? Or is this something you have to do alongside all kinds of other things that you do? So all things being equal, though, I do have an answer. I'm not just going to say, depends and that's it. All things being equal, we recommend 6 to 8 weeks as the recommended amount of time. Why? Well, on one hand, it's not too short. Studying this long, around 2 months, it gives you enough time to both study and also to breathe a little. So you're not going to get too stressed, overly stressed, as you may try and stuff it into a shorter amount of time. On the other hand, it's also not too long. You're not going to have enough time to start forgetting stuff that you learned at the beginning, which can happen if you study for several months, right? Can you remember everything you learned or read 3 months ago? Not necessarily. So this is why it's kind of a good middle ground, and fitting in 100 to 120 hours is for many people possible to fit into 6 to 8 weeks. It doesn't mean taking up all your time. So if it is possible for you, and as I just said, this is kind of a low bar. Most people who aren't incredibly busy, even if they're working full time, should be able to fit in 100 to 120 hours into 6 to 8 weeks. So if you're one of those people, this is what we recommend: 2-month study plan. Okay, this plan might make sense for someone, to give another example, say like Tammy. Okay, so Tammy is a first-time test taker, but she has a very, very busy life. Okay, she both has a job, but also her evenings are mostly not free. In fact, let's say she can set aside only 2 hours of studying 3 times a week during the work week. Okay, and she can't take off any work before the test. Okay, she can study significantly more on the weekends, thankfully. But she also has some big constraints. A month in, she has a family vacation for a whole week. And a month after that, she has to take a few days off because she has to prepare something big at work, big presentation. Okay, so these types of time pressures, they might sound similar to, say, what John had at the beginning, but they're bigger, both on average and per every regular week, and both kind of in general. She has more big things. This kind of time pressure is what pushes someone like Tammy to go for a 90-day plan in the first place. Okay, and since she's starting from scratch, she's not really sure what she's good at, and she wants to budget an equal amount of time for all subjects. So if this sounds anything like you, this may be the plan for you. And we're going to tell you how to do it. However, before we do that, let's reiterate. This plan is meant for those of you that are indeed extremely busy. It's not recommended if your goal is simply to just study a lot and you think the more time studying, the merrier. It's not actually the case. And the truth is, 3 months is a very long time to study for the GMAT. And in many ways, it might be too long. The concern is that by the time you wrap up your studies, you will have forgotten a great deal of what you studied before. Okay, and also at a certain point, studying really becomes exhausting and less effective. And for all these reasons, studying for long really isn't necessary. Remember, you should be aiming for 100 to 120 hours in total. And over 3 months, if you do the math, it's barely an hour per day on average. Okay, so a 9-day study plan really makes sense only if you have very little time during the day to spread your studies out. If this is not the case, it may make sense, say you have to take, but you do have to take a test in 3 months from now, but you have a better schedule, it may actually make sense to delay your studies by a month. To start your studies in a month and then do the 60-day plan, which is the optimal amount of time. Another relevant scenario in which you might want to do this plan is if you're a non-native English speaker and you need to brush up on your language skills. If this is the case, we recommend devoting, say, the upcoming month, if you have to take a test in 3 months, so we recommend devoting the upcoming month to improving your language skills. Devote some serious amount of time each day to reading magazine articles, to reading newspapers, and going over verbal material. And following this, begin a 60-day study plan, which we've already discussed before. So go back to what I said before. Okay. So these are kind of people for whom the plan might not be right for, but if it is right for you, so how are you going to do it? So one thing is that if you're going to go for it, it's a good idea to find someone else who's going to do it and make him or her your real-life exam pal. Okay, you have one exam pal on your computer, but it's not a bad idea to also have a living human one. It's also a good idea for the other study plans, but for 3 months, I think, especially useful. Someone you can meet with once or twice a week, either to study or at least to discuss your progress. It'll make studying more enjoyable, more efficient. More efficient because the best way to really make sure you understand something is explaining it. Believe me. So now let's get down to the nitty-gritty, how to make the most of the 90 days. So the general structure of the plan is going to be similar, but more, of course, more spread out than what we've been talking about so far. So here we're going to be spending no less than 77 days. It's a lot of time. 77 days studying the material itself. So this means we can build a 3-day mini schedule for each subtopic. Sorry, this says 1 day, but it should say 3 days. 3-day mini schedule for each subtopic. Okay, on the first day, you'll be studying fundamental material, right? As we mentioned before, I'm not going to go into it, but don't forget to keep your summary list, your tips list going. On the second day, you should practice subject-related questions. And the third day, you can devote to review. Go over mistakes from the day before, from the practice day, and go over the conclusions from your tips list, see if they're being implemented, think of new ones to add. Take the day to reflect if you understand the topic well enough, and if not, what you should do about it. So these are your first 77 days. After that, once again, leave a few days unscheduled so that, as if you have to push things back, you'll be able to, as we've already discussed. And the last 10 days are similar to those of the other plans. You should devote every other day to topic review. Every other day that you're not doing topic review should be devoted to practice tests. Okay? The day off, once again, take the day off. The day before the test, take it off. And on test day, do what you've been studying 3 months for and ace the test. Okay? So, given all of the above, this is how Tammy's plan looks. Let's take a look at it for a second. So, as you can see, it's based on only about an hour and a half studying on weekdays, not counting the verbal work, but a fundamental material study. And even that's only 3 work days a week. She's studying in the evening, but she also has another 2 work days where she has other things. She's spending time with her family, she's going to drama class. Good for her. So she studies an hour and a half per week. And on the weekend, she studies another few hours. Here she studies 6 hours, but you can even say there's 4 hours in the final work. And still she has a day off. You can't see it here, but on another week of her schedule, she has this business trip for a week. And even given all these constraints, she has enough time to fit all the necessary material in. And so will you if your situation is anything like her and you do this plan. So that you can arrive at test day 90 days from now, ready to go and get a good score. A few other tips that I want to go over with you guys that are relevant for all 3 of them. So first one is silence is golden. What I mean by that, you can tell from the image maybe, is your phone should really be silenced And it should also be in a different room, preferably under a pillow or in a drawer, or under a pillow inside of a drawer. Your browser, you're on your computer, shouldn't have any other tabs open except for examPAL.com. And you should have a study place without a lot of other people around. Okay? You also don't, trust me, I checked, and you don't have to get up and go to the fridge every 20 minutes to check for updates. If anything happens in there, we'll tell you. But really, you need a place where you can sit, think, and be focused in relative silence. If you're having trouble grasping something, so you need to ask yourself what exactly you're having, what kind of trouble you're having, okay? If it's something small, okay, you're having a hard time understanding the rules of how angles between parallel lines, which angles are equal to each other and which ones aren't. So if it's something kind of technical, so don't get postponed, don't get hung up over it, but you can push it back to the review days. That's what they're there for, okay? If it's something though fundamental, and you just feel like, I don't feel like I really understand parallel lines. It's a complicated concept. I'm not sure I understand it. So do devote more time to it, okay? Prolong the time devoted to the topic itself, stealing from some other topic that you feel stronger about. So I'm going to give the subject of parallel lines. Here I'm going to give 4 days even, and I'm going to leave stats only 2 days because I feel better about that. Okay. You shouldn't, however, by any means erase subjects from your schedule entirely. Even if it's one you feel really good about, even if you won the state championships in sets, if that were a thing, still don't erase it entirely. You can shorten it, but leave yourself time to go over it. Okay, being good at something is nice, but why not be great if you can? Another thing to realize, another important tip, is that mistakes are opportunities. I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard that line, but it's true. So you should research every mistake that you make and ask yourself, why did it happen? What do I need to do differently? Keep, as we've mentioned before, but I am going to repeat it because I think it's important, keep a running list of different mistake types you do, a running list of examples and tips on how to approach them correctly. I think you're better off doing 500 questions and really understanding them than doing 10,000 questions kind of blindly or robotically. Get 8 hours of sleep every night, and I won't add anything because it's just that simple. And exercise is recommended. It'll only help.
examPAL,